And I believe they were eventually calling me Brian Trash or something like that, or something like that. Anyway, British is Brian Trash because, well, like I said, the whole city of England or Britain, the where the Thames is, was a big giant trash yard, basically, where all the trash from Europe basically came to one spot to get compacted in. They trucked it by trains, they trucked it by whatever, but it was all the trash, and we were filling in a swamp to make it less mushy. Anyway, whatever. So anyway, a giant pile of trash was there, and eventually we got cockroaches there and also rats, and eventually we started covering it over with dirt and stuff like that. And for years, it was basically just mushy mess, basically. Anyway, I really don't know the exact details of Brian Trash. Yes, I was the trash king. Well, anyway, my steam trains trucked the trash to one spot in particular. Anyway, later on, because of the instability and all kinds of other stuff, I had buildings on top and stuff like that. And it took years for it to settle down, actually. But eventually it did after some time, and eventually we had enough dirt on top of it that basically it stopped selling. But of course, there's also the methane gas and all that other stuff which people could smell and stuff like that. Anyway, but that was Brian Trash or British. It's funny using a name and calling someone something without actually knowing what it's about or who it was or where it came from. A giant trash yard, as far as the eye could see. It was a swamp, a giant swamp. Anyway, though, whatever. It's a big trash pile. Like I said, there is so much trash underneath England, it's not even funny. I'm not exactly sure how deep it goes. And they were digging it out or exploring it one time. Anyway, I'm not exactly sure about anything about that. But basically, England is basically my old trash yard, pretty much, that they covered over with dirt. And put a lot of dirt on top of it. And it was very expensive to deal with all that trash because there's cockroaches and all kinds of stuff inside of there. They seemed to like the trash quite a bit. And so did the rats. So anyway, and then later on the dogs came and ate the rats that were eating the cockroaches. And the whole thing is rather funny if you ask me. Most drunken Irish would say. Or English would say, as basically someone had to deal with the trash pile. And now to work. Stagger, 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 stagger. Nose plugs, anyone? Anyway, it smelled really bad. And basically it was trash. A bunch of rotting trash. And maybe even some rotting bodies. Who knows? Anyway, about 1,000 years later or 120 years later, they could finally build on it. Stuff like that. It had finally stopped decomposing and had settled enough. Anyway, and I'm not exactly sure. Like I said, try digging through what's it called. You might find anything in there. Who knows how much. Like at one point in time, they were actually doing exploratory digs, around England because when they were putting in the new buildings, they would do coring samples down to the bottom to find the bedrock or what was down there because there are some large buildings that they were going to build in England. And it's like, well, good luck with that. You're sitting on top of a trash pile. It's a giant trash pile. Yeah. Like I said, they were doing some drilling things and they kept on dulling their drill bits and wondered why. Well, you could be drilling through anything. Steam engines, freight trains, a dead body, a car. There was a lot of stuff underneath England. What can I say? It was a giant trash pile. There could be anything from radioactive, nuclear, old radioactive trains down there to whatever. Who knows? Like I said, I know basically a little bit about England, and basically that's because it was my trash pile. So, the Thames, as they say. Anyway, and while you would be calling me crazy for years, well, what would you expect me to do this with the trash? I was like, well, I don't know what to do with it. Put it in a valley? Anyway, eventually, later on, I came across, or someone came across the idea of actually, because a lot of methane was given off. I was like, well, let's see what kind of gas is being given off. And well, it smelled really bad, but, like I said, it was actually flammable. And at one point in time, flash fires were actually even a problem around the trash pile that was England. The fog, don't light a match! Because the the methane coming off of the trash pile was quite a bit, as they say. So later on, I decided, well, let's try and tap into that. So anyway, and that's also why basically trash piles basically have natural gas, basically, stuff like that. Anyway, and a few years later and sometime later, basically, we have pretty much what we have with the trash. Anyway, lots of people be like, where'd this all come from? Why? 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 Who? Who owned Germany? Who was the Lord of Germany? Who was the Lord of anywhere? Where is the prince of or the little king of China? What was his name? Anyway, other than a few old pictures, you have no idea. Well, anyway, I was a little king. Anyway, it had to do with my involvement in China. So, anyway, whatever. So, anyway, a lot of people were confused about the fact that, where was the Prince of China? Anyway, yeah. Well, I mean, who named America? All that stuff. What, you're going to believe Jeopardy? Are you going to believe the information on Smarter Than the Average Bear? A 1910 or 1920s TV show in black and white called Smarter Than the Average Bear. It was a game show where you'd be given cards and then you would read them and you would try and answer the questions on the cards or something like that. Anyway, I don't really know. I don't really care. It was a stupid game show and they made up their answers. And the whole thing was rigged anyway. And this information came out at some point in time. When they had made up an answer for a real question that actually was in the world. And the person actually sued them and went back and said, no, that answer is wrong. This is the truth. So, anyway, whatever. I don't really care. And they eventually settled out of court or something like that. I don't really know, and I really don't give a crap. Any 1920s or 1910s stupid TV shows. Like I said, only people with cable TV or the old phone networks could actually watch TV. As it was just standing by and doing absolutely nothing. Basically, just, like I said, the cable TV network, the coax cable network, basically we used it for the old phone system. I had every town built with a coax cable system that was the phone system. Anyway, as technology improved and everything else like that, they started using it for cable TV and telephone. Because, the thing was that, anyway, whatever. It doesn't really matter. So, anyway, and also getting upgraded to digital networks, basically. But there was a problem because some people had the old cable TV networks and the new cable TV networks, which one was digital, one was not. So it was hard to overlay information on top of basically the old TVs. So anyway, though, but I think we found a way of making them both work at the same time. I'm not exactly sure for a while. And then eventually, we just transmitted over because you could get a lot more channels and do a lot more data throughput with basically the cable TV networks. So anyway, and the size of the wire apparently was better for transmitting long distances than the telephone system. And guess who owned it? Lusifer Star is the name, and it was my copper. So anyway, just like my electrical wires and stuff like that. I was the #1 miner. Lusifer Star, mining and shipping. How can I help you? Anyway, so eventually Rick Bush and Rodney and a bunch of other people would find out who I truly was. And, well, anyway, whatever. Like I say, just deal with it, dude. It's the way it is. I'm sorry. You'll see all these pictures. And like I said, even the Titanic rudder, basically, one of my ships, they're repairing the rudder, and I went ahead and let some local Irishmen do the work, which actually made them a lot of money because I paid top dollar for the rudder. But it had to be a bolted rudder, which was a 3-piece rudder or something like that. And later on, they were blamed, saying that they were responsible for the accident or something, saying that the rudder actually fell off. But I believe it was still attached down there. Anyway, it didn't fall off. So anyway, and eventually I covered it over anyway. I was just wondering because I'm putting it out there because I want to know what happened to my epic ship. Anyway, I loved all my people in England and cared about them very much. Or not England, I mean Ireland. Anyway, though, they didn't have a huge, massive foundry to do the rudder or something on one of my ships, so I let locals do it, which basically made them very wealthy. So, anyway, whatever.